There's a lot of videos out there about how to light your content creation videos. So I thought I would try to make one too. In this video, you're gonna find a consolidated list of equipment, lighting setups, and some tips and tricks to help you get some good looking footage. What's up friends, the Nerdy Filmmaker here, and today we're talking about lighting. Now as a quick note, a lot of my films are about filmmaking, but this particular video is about lighting for content creation like YouTube, TikTok, or Twitch streaming. There's definitely some differences not only in the equipment, but in the kind of lighting setups, especially if you're shooting drama. For the purpose of this video, content creation. So there's lots of different kinds of equipment that you can use in order to light your videos. But I'm gonna be focusing on 3 of the most popular kind of lighting fixtures for content creation. They all have pros and cons, and it's up to you to figure out which one is the right one for your needs. Now the first kind of lighting equipment is an LED lighting panel. So these are comprised of hundreds of LED lights, all kind of soldered to one board. This particular one is the newer RGB 660. I actually have a review on these lights, so I'll leave a link in the description. These are the lights I most often use. I am being lit by one right now in front of me. The benefits to these kinds of lights is that they are much smaller, more portable, they take up less room. They're not gonna be as powerful as one of the other lights I'm gonna show you. They are also a lot more budget friendly. They have battery power options as well as direct AC. So if you want to minimize the amount of wires that you have in your space, I always have 2 batteries charging, and then whenever I'm ready to do one of these videos, I just plug them into the light. Less things to worry about. They often come with a little softbox, and which is just a way to help diffuse the light even more. These particular lights have the full RGB spectrum, meaning that not only are they daylight to tungsten, meaning like white light to yellow light, but they can also do red and green and purple and everything else you can think of. All of these lights I'm going to be showing you are meant to be put on either light stands or if they're small enough, desk clamps, if let's say you're doing some Twitch streaming. All right, on to the next one. So this over here is what's called a cob light. These lights are definitely a lot more powerful than LED lights. They also require a lot more diffusion because as you can see, this light has all of its LEDs kind of really crammed into a very small circuit board. So this is optimized for power, not for softness. You absolutely need a modifier on this. The pros to this kind of light is that it definitely gives a much stronger light. So if you're competing with, let's say, sunlight, there's a window behind you or something like that, this is gonna be a lot better for that. But also, not only does it need diffusion, it looks a lot better than these lights when it has diffusion. This particular light has 2 different ways of mounting diffusion into it. You can either use this universal mount here that's around the light. A lot of these kinds of lights have the exact same mount type, meaning that you can get a softbox that works on any of them. It also has a little notch here if you wanted to put in an umbrella. That's definitely a much cheaper and space efficient option. Now these ones do run on power and battery, but the batteries are definitely a lot more expensive for these lights. They use what's called V-mount batteries. They're a lot bigger, clunkier. So if you don't care about wiring and you want the best kind of lighting and you have the space for it, this is definitely an option. Now the final kind of lighting that is extremely popular, or definitely was at the start of kind of TikTok and during lockdowns and whatever, as a very cheap main light source is ring lights. Ring lights are very space efficient, and they're generally meant to be used properly by putting them over the lens, so the lens shoots through. These lights can be used as kind of a regular light that's not around the lens, but at that point, these are not going to be the softest options, and generally in content creation, we're looking for soft lighting. These definitely give off a very distinct look compared to traditional lighting, so if you like that look, it can be an option. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this because I don't use them so much anymore, but maybe we'll do a little sample of it. So when you're choosing your equipment, the things you want to consider are, is space important to you? Do the lights need to be compact? If so, then maybe that big cob light is not the choice for you. Is budget a consideration? There are cob lights that are much cheaper than this one, which was like $800. And do you need more than one? In which case, a lot of these LED panels do come in pairs. Or are you really looking to have the best, softest light possible? Cost is not so much of a consideration for you, or you're willing to invest long term? maybe you are also doing other kinds of videos, interview videos or whatever, and you're willing to invest in something like a Cobb system, those lights with all the different kinds of attachments you can get, not only soft boxes, but lanterns and reflectors and all the different kinds of attachments that you can get for those lights make them much more versatile in the long run. I'm gonna leave links to these lights in the description so you can check out at least what these ones cost, although I don't think you can get this one anymore, so I'll leave an equivalent, let's say. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about how to actually place your lighting. We're gonna be starting off with only one light, and then we'll add a second one later and show you what you can actually do with that. So this first setup is a very popular setup, and it's called butterfly lighting. It's when the light is placed in front of you, so basically directly behind the camera and up. That is when you place the light behind the camera and above it. This is a great lighting setup when you only have one light. It doesn't create a lot of contrast. The reason they call it butterfly lighting is because this little shadow on your nose is supposed to look like a butterfly or something. But there you go, that's a very simple setup. Now you really want to make sure in this lighting setup that you don't put the light too high. You don't want it to be so high that it's going to start to create shadows where your eyes are. You want to see the reflection of the light in your eyes. It's very pretty. That's setup number one. Let's switch to setup number two. So this here is setup number two. This is what's called Rembrandt lighting, or maybe 3/4 lighting. So essentially, to get this lighting set up, you make a line to the camera, you make a line to 90 degrees to your side here, and it's kind of directly in the middle. So if this is 0 and this is 90, you want to put it at 45. I've also kept it at the same height. It's high enough that the light is going past the bridge of my nose over here and hitting me on this side over here. So in a way, it is actually still lighting both eyes of my face. If I close one eye, I can still see the light from this eye. That's how you know it's hitting. Now this light is still very flattering, but it does create a little bit more contrast. So that's something up to you if you want that kind of light and shadow playing on your face. This can also really help with kind of slimming down your face if that's something that you're concerned with. Now the last lighting setup is called split lighting or side lighting. This is not something you traditionally usually do in content creation unless you're really trying to do something really dramatic. Let's say you're doing some kind of transition video, you're doing your TikTok stuff and you go, and all of a sudden you're in cosplay. Like maybe that's something that you want to do to accentuate drama in your footage. It also gives you an opportunity to add a second light on this side, which is maybe colored. All right, now let's move back to 3/4 lighting. So once again, we are here with our shadowy side on my face. Now you might want to add a second light to your setup if you have the room and budget in order to deal with, let's say, the contrast, how much shadow is on this side of your face. This is without a second light. And as soon as I add in a second one, all of a sudden these shadows are brighter, but I still have that shape to my face. I still have the highlight over here and the shadows over here. That's one of the benefits of having a second light. So right now this second light is placed basically on the 45 on this side, but that light can go behind the camera straight on. So it's kind of just creating a flat fill light, or it can be put next to me, and that's gonna do something a little bit different. So now the light is beside me, and it is still lighting up the shadowy side of my face, but the further this light comes behind me, it becomes what's called a kicker, and I'm gonna be showing you that in the next section. Now, if you like this type of lighting, but you don't necessarily want to splurge on two lights, a way to control the contrast is by putting what's called a bounce, and that's just something white over here. Now it could be a reflector, you could purchase a reflector if you'd like, or it could just be shooting next to a white wall. Maybe it's a white bed sheet or towel or curtain that you find a way to put up next to you, but anything that reflects the light from your main light source off there on your face starts to reduce the amount of contrast. So at this point, with everything that we've covered in the first two sections, you should be able to properly light your content. And if you take a look at any kind of really well lit content creation on YouTube, it's usually one of those two setups, either 3/4 lighting or butterfly lighting at different heights depending on what they're going for. But what are some other ways that you could spice up your image to kind of give it more of a personal feel? The first way to do it is to add in something called practicals. Practicals are simply lights that are in the shot for decoration. All of a sudden, just by turning on a lamp in the background, I've created depth and color contrast. It's a really simple way to add kind of like texture or personal flair to your video. You can do this either with lamps like this. That question mark thing there actually can be battery powered and lights up. Maybe you want to use something like that. LED strips, a lot of people use LED strips to add color to their background. Even just fairy lights. It really depends on the aesthetic of the background that you're going for. That's almost more of like a set decoration kind of approach to lighting. But no matter what it is, make sure it's not overpowering what your actual lights are. Because if it's gonna be so bright that it's going to draw attention to that kind of defeats the purpose. So make sure they are darker than what your actual light sources are. I actually used to use tube lighting as practical lights back in my older videos, and the only reason I don't anymore is because I've rearranged my apartment and I no longer have the space to use those kind of things. Oh well, I miss it already. The next thing I want to show you are kicker lights. So I've slightly kind of readjusted my frame here to be able to demonstrate something called a kicker light. I still have my practical on back there, but what a kicker light does is I've added my other second LED panel off to my side. It's actually just off frame. There you can see it off to the side there. And basically I'm gonna turn that on. And what that does is create a little contour here on the side of my face. And the way I have it set up now is actually kind of simulating as if that lamp in the back was the one creating that light. So I turn it off, that's what it looks like without. I turn it on. If you can match it to the color of what the actual lamp in the background is, you can kind of create that kicker light. This is not necessary. You don't have to be going nuts like this, but it is a way to help separate you from the background a little bit more. Practicals and kicker lights and hair lights, which are kind of the same thing but put overhead, those are a little harder to do because you kind of need the proper setup for it. They take up a lot of space. But this kind of thing can help create some three-dimensionality to your image. You can also play with colors. I mean, that looks pretty dope. If you wanted to do something like this, you don't want your whole background to be red, just the part of your face, then all you need to do is find something to control the light, let's say some barn doors or something like that to attach to your light. But color is a great way to create a distinctive style for your channel. A lot of people use the kind of cyan and orange look that's very popular. I have in my past videos used teal and pink. I don't really know what type of pink, but I just use teal and pink. To wrap this up, let me check my notes here. We have a main light that can be either put behind and above the camera that creates butterfly lighting. You can have a 3/4 lighting like this. You can add a second light if you'd like, or a bounce or a window to kind of help fill in the contrast if you find it too contrasty. And if you want to spice things up a bit, throw a practical back there, fairy lights, some LEDs, and if you want to add a kicker, you can do that kind of thing too. The problem with the kicker is that you need a lot of space for it. You need some space behind you, so harder to do in some situations. Tips, make sure your lights are not too high because then you're going to create shadows under your eyes over here because the light's going to be hitting your brow and not your eyeballs. Well, you want it in your eyeballs. Another tip that I didn't mention is the distance between you, the light, and the background. The closer the light is to you, the brighter you're going to become compared to the background. So if you want the background to be darker, either pull yourself away from you and the light away from the background, and or bring the light closer to you. Anyway, I think that's about it. That's pretty extensive. So if I missed anything, please let me know. If you'd like to know more about a specific kind of lighting setup, a specific kind of light, if you liked kind of the idea of the kicker and you want a more in-depth look at it, if you want to know more about, I have done a video on softening your light, but if you want another one that's a bit more extensive, that's talking about specific kind of setups, let me know. I hope this was very helpful for you. If it was, you know what to do. Like, share, comment, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'll see you on the flippity flop. Have a great rest of the day. Miss you already. Mwah.